right, welcome back. We have another Boots on Ground episode. This is going to be a mix of an exited series as well as quite literally a learned lesson where we're talking about a journey from 2013 all the way to today. We're going to extract as much as we possibly can. Welcome to the pod, Steve P. Young, Bootstrapping to Billions.
Thank you, Chris. I'm super excited to be here.
So this is going to be a Boots on Ground episode, right?
Yep.
We're going to cover from May 8th, 2013 of launching the pod all the way to, I don't want to necessarily say the date that we're recording today, but 2026, asterisk of when the pod's coming out, but within a couple of weeks for sure, give or take. And that's a lot of time to be able to cover. So don't do public math, but it's definitely many years. And we have in that story, we're going to be talking about identification of market needs, listening to the audience. We're going to be talking about building audience and the importance of that, distribution. There's some exits that we're going to sprinkle in as well. We're going to talk about maybe acquisition as well, scaling a team and a headcount and productized service, and a lot of things to be able to get going. Everything starts somewhere. Take us on back. It is May 8th, 2013.
Yeah.
How did you get started?
Yeah. So I started in the app space. So I'm in the app space, pretty known in the app space. But in 2010, started building apps, Chris, because I was like, hey, I had my son 18 months at the time, about to graduate high school, by the way, insane. But 18 months at the time, built an app. And I was seeing him interact with apps on his iPad and really learning from these apps. And I was like, dude, I want to do this too. So I taught myself how to code. I majored in business, minored in computer science. I was running growth for a startup in San Francisco. And I taught myself how to do apps. And so I built my first app and then started making money. And it wasn't a lot of money. It was just like $500 a month. But I was like, hey, this is kind of cool, like little side money, right? And I love listening to podcasts, Chris, back then too. Mixer G, big fan of them. And I was like, hey, I want to do this. My childhood dream, Chris, is to be a game show host. Okay. I've got a lot of sound effects down on this board
There
too.
we go.
Yeah. So I was like, you know what? I think I could do this pretty well. And I was like, apps are growing. And so my second kid was born, my daughter. And during the paternity leave, this is 2013, this is February. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I got 2 weeks off from work. I'm going to start recording I'm going to bank a couple of different episodes. So I recorded a couple of different episodes during that time. I reached out to a few people. I was planning it out. And then May 8th, 2013, was the official launch date, but I had a few episodes already banked. And so I saw the intersection of, and Chris, I never think I'm early on things, by the way. I never think I'm early on anything, but obviously I was early on apps. I was early on podcasts because now, no offense, everybody has one now.
That's taken.
Right. I'm like, whoa, I was early. I was like, I didn't think I was early because you know what? And I think this is a lesson that I've learned personally is like, look, I'm in the, you look at that crossing the chasm. I'm an early adopter. So when I thought it was crowded, it was in the early adopting space. I was like, there's so many business podcasts. I didn't want to do another business podcast. I was like, well, apps are growing. I like listening to podcasts that talk about apps. Why don't I do one just on apps? And set a niche down. And through that, I was interviewing people that were like somewhat well known, but not like hugely well known. And so I was like, what would be a great guest that would just like solidify this podcast, like put this podcast onto the map? And I was like, everybody knows Shazam, right? Like everybody knows Shazam. That was the big app that took off. So I went on LinkedIn. I looked for people who worked at Shazam, right? And I found somebody who's still at Shazam and I emailed them and no response. And then I did some more research and I was like, I found Chris Barton. And Chris Barton was the first CEO of Shazam. But at the time I found him, he was working at Dropbox, right? He had left. He still was, had equity in the company, but he first started it. Like he was the founding team. He was the first CEO. And so I reached out to Chris. Chris replies. And I love Chris. Like he and I are text buddies, but and he replies and he's like, Steve, how many listeners do you have? And I was like, 300, 600. I think I had 300 to Chris. And I bumped it up and I was like, 600. Yeah. And then he's like, okay, that's not too bad. He's like, let me talk to the Shazam PR team and get back to you. And we do the episode and I'm doing my best to promote the crap out of that episode. But ever since that episode, I started getting bigger and bigger guests, and that just solidified everything else. I'm like, okay, Shazam said yes. Why can't you
Mhm.
say yes? And so sometimes you just need these like domino effects to happen. That first domino to fall, and that was that first domino to fall. And I'm forever indebted to Chris for saying yes in the very beginning.
No, I
So
love that so much. I love that
yeah,
so much. That's an amazing origin story, quite
thanks, bro.
literally defined, which very seldom, infrequent, and far between do we have somebody who can identify not only the moment in time, but also the person and the connectivity
Yeah,
between all of these moments in life. And like life is a very real thing. And you had the two kiddos, and it was paternity leave, and quite
yeah,
literally like connecting the dots and like riches in the niches. I need to niche down and find this interest and pursuit. And then like, let me find the person and reach out and like make it happen. Well, love it. All right. Huge thanks to today's sponsor, Tailor Brands. Tailor Brands is an AI business builder with quite literally everything you need to guarantee your business is set up for success. And in today's environment, if you're building, if you're bootstrapping, this is the move. One of the first things you need when you get started in business is an LLC. An LLC separates your personal from your business assets. That's protection that matters. That's a non-negotiable. But here's where it gets really good. When you register your LLC with Tailor, you don't just get an LLC, you get an entire dashboard of tools designed to ensure your business is always one step ahead. We're talking a free business plan, a business coaching program, access to legal documents, invoices, bookkeeping, and more. That's a foundation, and that's an infrastructure. And that's what separates the folks who are building with intention from everyone else. All you have to do is go over to tailorbrands.com/bootstrapper and get started today. The link is in the show notes. Again, that's tailorbrands.com/bootstrapper. Get started today. Trust the process, commit to the journey. Now back to today's episode. Do you
yeah.
know how many episodes you've done at this point? I don't know if like
I
you
stopped
keep track
counting,
like
dude.
that.
I know
Yeah.
some people do,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
eventually I just stopped counting. Like, and then the other thing I got early on was I've done thousands at this point. Like, I haven't
Yeah, right?
stopped, right? And I used to do 2 a week because I was listening to somebody else. And he's like, everybody does once a week, so I went 2, so I'm gonna do 2 a week. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it, I'm gonna do 2 a week. And the thing that has changed since the podcast is like in 2020 during the pandemic, I'm yeah, I think I noticed from you, you're an extrovert, you're a people person, you love and I was like, I need that. Like, I love my wife and kids, but I need to talk to people. And so I started going live on YouTube because I started
Yeah.
noticing other people. And now, like, everybody has a video podcast. And I'm like, oh, I was a little bit early on that. But that was just sheer need of me wanting to talk to people live and not have to do audio only. And so we started shifting from just an audio pre recorded to just going live like a show every Friday. And that has, really built up. When I moved that I shifted towards YouTube in 2015, started creating more YouTube content, and that completely changed the game again because now we've never done any marketing, outbound marketing for our business. We've just everything's been inbound, and YouTube, is a number 2 search engine. So people search
Yeah.
for app marketing, app store optimization, which is just SEO for the app store. We rank really well for those terms. And so that's how we've been able to build up the audience and then the business as well.
And to get folks into the perspective and narrative of where we are today, right? So it
Sure.
started May 2013. In terms of the pod and the show, you were in the day job at that moment in time.
Yes.
You then started to build an audience. We're at 600, 600
Yeah,
listeners,
cool.
right? And we're creating content. We're crafting a narrative, telling stories, and folks are starting to listen. And then at some moment in time, you began to listen and you
Yeah.
started to listen to essentially what your audience was interested in.
Yeah.
At what moment, take us through this period of time of like going from the day job to then actually getting a business going and then
Yeah.
making the business your job.
Yeah,
Exit one.
absolutely, man. So 3 months into starting the podcast, somebody reaches out to me and said, "Hey, Steve, can you help me with our app launch?" And I go,
Mm.
"Dude, I don't know anything. This is why I started the podcast. Like, I know about online marketing and blogging. Like, that's what I was doing a lot
'Cause
of.
you're
And I
doing
know,
growth.
yeah, right. Like, but it's
Yeah.
all online. Like, it's not like app store marketing. I've never done any app store marketing." He's like, "No, I trust you, man. I've been listening since day one." And, I was like, "Okay." And I trust you. And I was like,
Which is
"Okay,
a cool
well."
thing to hear too. Like
Dude,
what?
it
Right?
is Amit
Right?
Gupta.
Yeah.
He's a good dude, and it was insane. And he was out in India, and he was like, "Look, we have a suite of apps. We just have this new app that combines all the different apps. I trust you." And then he's like, "How much would you charge to help us with X, Y, and Z?" And I was like, he's like, "I've also talked to other companies, like, how much are they charging you? How much are they quoting you?" Like, 15,000. I was like, "All right, I'll do it for 5." Like, and he's like, "Okay, let me talk to the team and I'll talk to you." And I was like, I don't know, but I will try hard for you." And so he said, "Deal, let's do it." They agreed on the 5, and that's how I started doing it. And then started building up more and more connections. That's what the podcast really opened up. Forget the listeners. I mean, I was getting a few hundred people listening every time, but I'd open up to a whole network of people that I just did not have access to. And one of those
Mm.
people just happened to be able to land me a consulting gig. And so he's like, "Hey, I'm looking for a part time person, who can do some things that you're good at." And I was like, "Okay." So I have an audience. I was making, 120 at the time. So just say 10,000 a month. I was like,
Mhm.
"Okay, this consulting client was going to give me 4,000." I was like, "Okay, I just have to figure
Mhm.
out a way to make up the rest, and I'll figure it out." So through that, I was like, "There's something here. It's just signals, right?" And Chris, I was always a side hustler, dude. I was side hustling for days. And some of the things I've learned is just like, look, if you're always side hustling for days and you've always wanted to be an entrepreneur like me, maybe you're doing side hustles because you're too scared to do it full time. And I came to that realization because I never thought I was afraid of anything. So I would just launch crap. Like, I'm not afraid. I'm gonna launch stuff. I was like, maybe I am afraid because I've always kept these on the side so they can fail. There's no need for them to actually succeed. So
Yeah.
maybe I am truly afraid of becoming an entrepreneur. And so I turned to my wife. I was listening to another podcast. And I was like, "Honey, there's something here. It's not everything yet, but there's something here. I think it's time for me to leave and try to pursue this thing." And she's like, "Okay." And so 6 months after starting that podcast, at the end of 2013, I was like, gave my 3 months notice, by the way, too long, but
Yeah.
I gave my boss, because I love him, but I was like, "Hey, I'm going to leave at the end of this year. I'm going to try to do this on my own and go on my own." And so I did do that. And then I was trying to do a lot in that first year,
Mhm.
but 15 months, I was trying to sell courses. I was trying to do everything, Chris, and
Because
doing a
you're
little
trying to bridge that
consulting.
6K gap essentially. You're trying to figure
Bro,
it out.
trying to figure it out, right? And so I made 90,000 that first year. And then in 2015, it's around March or April, I go to an event, said, "Help me sell more courses." It gives me some feedback. Literally, I go back to my desk because, I go on stage. I'm like, "All right, here's what I'm trying to do." And they're giving me feedback. There's only like 30 people there. Go back to my desk after that feedback. I was like, "That's good feedback, but it wasn't the greatest." And I started thinking, I was like, "What the fudge are people wanting from me? They're not asking me for courses. They're asking me to just help me with my app launch." And so, just like Amit did 3 months into the podcast, I was like shutting everything down. So I had like 4 people paying me a subscription for my course. I was like, "Hey, I'm going to cancel your subscription. You get lifetime access, but I'm not going to do this
Mhm.
anymore. I'm going all in." And I just started going all in on just the agency side and the services side. And that's when it changed the game. And it went from like 90 to 164 to two something to 300. And then slowly started really building up everything after that. But it took me taking, a day to get away from my business to really think about like what's actually working. And
Which is a
that changed
scary
everything.
thing. I mean, it's a
Dude.
very scary thing to walk away from money coming in when the thought process is, "How do I get more?" Right? So if we just stop and pause and appreciate that for a second, because there's maybe a lot of folks listening that may or may not be in a very similar situation. And it's kind of like you got to take a step back. Everything starts somewhere and make a good timely decision. You went to this event, they provided you some feedback. You said, maybe this is not the right feedback for me.
Yeah.
You made this
No shit. It
decision
was
because
good feedback.
you paid attention. I mean, pattern recognition, right? The ability to acknowledge patterns, and people were already paying you and wanted to pay you more, perhaps, right? And you're like, this is the thing that I could do. That's a very tough thing. So how do we get the next customers? So like, how did you actually start to go and build this thing and build the momentum behind it? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, the crazy part is because of the podcast, there was already an audience. And so I said, "Hey, I'm good. This is what I'm going to do." And I was just charging like $500 for a one time thing. And then people just started coming. because of the audience, people just start coming. Hey, I'm doing this now. If you need me to help with the app launch, I'm going to help you with your app launch. Right. And
That was the pure acquisition channel for you. It was
that was
quite
it,
literally
man.
the built-in audience, organically being able to communicate to folks, acknowledging like I'm going to be doing this thing, putting it out there, having folks be receptive to that. And that channel, that growth became the business. That was the engine behind, that was your profit engine essentially.
Exactly. Like the podcast, people say like, oh, like is the podcast a marketing channel? I'm like, the podcast was everything, dude. Like it taught me what business to build. It told me what everything started with the podcast. It was the holy grail of it all. And it's crazy because I never thought, I remember this one guest. I reach out to them. They've been featured by Apple, Chris. They're game publisher. And I'm downloading their games. I'm like, these are freaking amazing games. They're
Yeah.
always getting featured by Apple back when that mattered. And so I reach out to them like, hey, you want to do a podcast together? And they're like, yeah, let's do it. And so I'm doing the podcast. And after the episode, they're like, hey, tell me more about what you're doing, this like
Mhm.
app marketing stuff. And then they become a client. And I'm like, yo, this is crazy. Like, all I did was reach out to them to try to interview them to learn from them, and they want my help with the marketing side. And that was a game changer for me. And that's when like the light bulb just like totally switched. I was like, okay, this is an acquisition channel too. I never treated it as that,
Yeah, because it
but
wasn't to begin with. You did it authentically and organically, which is maybe
it
the
still
hardest thing.
isn't. Yeah, it still isn't for me. And I tell people, and because I get offended. They're like, "Oh, is this an acquisition?" I'm like, "No, bro. Like this was the thing." And then I still treat it as
Don't
something.
question my integrity.
Yeah, 100%. Because even to this day, I'm like, just like you, and I could feel the energy from you. It's like we use this as an opportunity to learn from people that are, that have done some stuff in the space. So yeah,
I'm thinking for our audience literally right now, because this is quite literally boots on ground, how you can get something going, right? Talking about live, learn lessons and the
yeah,
ability to replicate, right? Sometimes the easiest thing is just to copy, right? Know what works and then do it. You created this audience. A lot of folks like right now, content, right? So it's like different time, different moment in time for sure, pods.
right,
But I think that maybe like micro dosing and shorts and things like that nature. Like I feel like for audience listening, there's probably ways that you could apply this quite literally without having the business in mind. Again,
yep,
to your quote, right? First time founders build for product and second distribution, etc. Right?
right, yep,
It's like almost like identify, create, find the audience, which is what you did. Learn from the audience, listen to your audience, which is your next customer, which is your best investor, your next paying
exactly,
customer. So
exactly.
we started building demand and the business is growing. We go from 90K to 160. It's continuing to grow. It's compounding.
Hmm.
At what moment in time did the model itself shift? Because something I want to pull into today's pod is the way in which you built your agency in
Yeah.
terms of the productized service.
Yeah. So in 2018, like the business is starting to go, and I'm like, wow, this is crazy. Like, you know, I'm living the dream. The whole reason I got into the business, Chris, was like, I grew up in the Bay Area. So I always thought I had to raise money from VCs, raise millions, sell for billions, right? And I started listening to other entrepreneurs who are like, you know what? I just want to hang out with my kids and have that flexibility and that freedom. And I was like, you know what? I want that too. I don't care about the billions. I care about just having a good lifestyle, live in a great neighborhood, and having that great lifestyle where I can spend time with my kids and my family.
Or
So
just
that,
bootstrap the billions, you know?
bro, there you go. Maybe we'll get there one day. So worth the millions, but not the B word yet. But anyways, I started because like I love building stuff. I started another company called Copy Masters. And what I saw in the space was we were paying for these services called like Design Pickle, and we were all
Mhm.
project based. So at Masters was always project based. It went from 500 to 1,000 to $3,000 and $4,000 per project, right? And so, and I would see like certain months would be great, certain months wouldn't be so great. We'd have a lot of sales in one
The
month,
ebb
and
and
then
flow.
another month, yeah, it would ebb and
The
flow.
feast and famine, yes.
Yeah, so I was like, why don't I just do this? I love this like monetization idea where it's a monthly fee, you can cancel anytime, and it's for services for like real people. And I was like, I want to do that for copy. So like blog posts. So like, hey, I'm gonna charge people $670 a month, and then we'll create a lot of blog posts for you. And I had a bunch of writers. And so I tried that and it was working. Like we had a couple of customers. I launched it and like two or three customers signed up right away. And I was like, perfect. This is something here. ultimately got to the point where I learned that copy is very much subjective. What one person likes, another person might not like. And so we had 4 or 5 paying customers, and I just did not want to do this anymore. And so I ended up selling the business because I was like, still like a retention model. People still are buying this. And we're ranking number one for unlimited copywriting, Chris, on
Hmm.
Google as well. And so that's how we're getting like some other customers that weren't finding me. And so I knew this unlimited thing was there. And so I just started thinking, like, again, listening to the audience, I was like, know what, Steve? People know you for apps, bro. Like, why don't you just do the same freaking monetization channel for app marketing instead of copy and blog posts? So I started with a Google Slides because I was taking all the inbound sales calls. I was like, hey, we have this project based thing, but would you be interested in this more like productized service? It's everything you would get, but you just pay it a monthly fee. Would you want to do that? And then they said, yeah. And they're signing up in 2020, by the way. So at the end of 2020, I was like, there's enough here. Let's kill the project based stuff and let's just be transparent and let's just put our pricing on. Because every freaking app marketing agency, Chris, you got to fill out form, right? And then they'll quote you. And so we've just threw it on our website and said, okay, we're going to charge you $470 a month. You get X, Y, and Z, and you can pay $770 a month. You can get another a little bit X, A, B, C, and X, Y, and Z, right? And that changed everything. And then at the end of 2021, I was able to hire more people. And then like 2022, more to the point where we were just like 6 or 7 people at the time for like 6, 7 years. And then the last 3 or 4 years, we've been exploding to now 30 plus and helped
30.
me
Yeah.
eventually hit the, now we're a 7-figure business and all that stuff. But like, yeah, like that changed everything for me when I just changed the monetization and I had the built-in distribution. The customers were still interested, but now became a no-brainer because they're like,
Yeah.
well, I can't pay you 4,000 right now, but I can pay you like 1,000 a month for 4
Hmm.
months. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm just going to bet. I told them like, I want to earn your business. If you're not happy, cancel within the first month. Try us out and cancel. I'm not trying to lock you into anything. And so I made the bet that, people would just stay on. We have customers from the very jump, dude. They've been with us for 4 years, 5 years. So that LTV number is something to keep in mind because obviously the LTV before was project based. It was like three or
Yeah.
4,000.
110.
Now it's like, it can go upwards of 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 100,000. Just might
Let's
take more
dive
time to get
deeper
there.
into the model itself
Yeah,
because
let's do it.
the model works, right? So first it was find the audience and build the audience, and then it was find the demand in the audience that you built, and then it was pivoting of the model. But the pivot of the model was really a test, and the test was with copy masters testing the model, which just wasn't the right market to a certain extent. It wasn't the right medium. It wasn't the right service. It wasn't the right fit, which you exited. So I think there is definitely an exit story that we should probably at some point tap into. But the model itself is what stuck because then you applied it forward and you shifted from the project based, which, yeah, a lot of folks, I mean, talk about bootstrapping. Like so many people get into bootstrapping and start their business and it's a service based business, right? Like that is like the easiest place for folks
It
to
is.
get started. And a lot of folks get stuck there and they feel this concept of feast or famine. So our audience listening right now, they're all leaning in. Yeah, I feel that. Like I definitely get that. What did you do? And they're taking notes right now. So you essentially took what was a structured, almost like what software to a certain extent, recurring revenue, durable revenue, right? Repeatable revenue, predictable revenue, the things that folks enjoy because it allows you to plan appropriately. You
Yep.
can plan your staffing needs, your team, like your human capital, your expenses, all these different things. And you can design a life that you enjoy. And you got the kiddos, which was the
Yeah.
primary focus, right? So it's like, how do we design this thing to a certain extent that we want to be able to build? And you borrowed. And there were other folks in market, to your point, who were doing this. And those were amazing stories, right? When this concept came up and it was like design pickle, etc. And it's like, wait, what?
Hmm.
Charging a subscription for service? What? How? Like that. Now it's super relevant because yes, there's definitely people at home in the service business, but we're also seeing like not the SaaSification anymore. It's almost like the servicification of SaaS that's currently taking place. So like with vibe
Yeah.
coding and all this stuff, like everyone's got SaaS and everyone's like, oh, the death of SaaS and commoditization of SaaS. And like
Dude.
we're all of a sudden seeing this new surge of like service and it's almost like servicification of SaaS. So this
Mm,
is probably spot on, not just for the folks in service today, but also for maybe some of these B2B SaaS folks or somebody, right? What else can we do? How do we do this mix? What have you learned? You've been doing this, you've been doing it really, really well. You've scaled with it. You've done it for 4 years, right? You've
yep.
been in this model for 4 years now.
About
So,
6. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
6
Yeah.
years. And so if you were to look at it and say, I love this about it, I hate this about it. And maybe we ring fence the things that you hate so
Yeah.
that we can get those things out of the way
Yep.
and let folks kind of acknowledge it. And then we could sink into the love. And what's great about it and how you've been able to embrace it and build a really great business, a 7-figure healthy business around it,
Yeah.
scaling to 30 plus people in a
Yeah. I
very,
think
nice run.
the hate part would be just as you build out the team, like you really have to the shift that I've had to make is like, you got to this point because you're such a great executor and now you have to be a good operator and you go from like being the star quarterback to now the head coach, right? Like and you're like, okay, I got to think things differently now. And I think that was been the hate part of like it's like, dude, just let me just do it, right? Like, let me just throw the ball, hit this wide receiver, if we're going to use football analogy. And so that's been the hardest shift. And I've been trying to figure out ways to make sure my team and the people that I hire are just as passionate and just as like about passionate about helping our clients grow, right? And trying to put these little like systems in place so that the clients get the attention and the love that they would have gotten if they were just personally working with me. And how do I put that into the team? That's been the hardest part, Chris, above it all.
Yeah.
And trying to figure that part out has been the toughest part of just continue to scale past this. Cause I think with any business, as I start to think about it, is, you get this inflection point and then you start plateauing and it's nice. And then you do something else to get another inflection point. Now I'm like at a point where I'm like, okay, what's the next thing I'm going to do to get the next inflection point? Because now it's starting to plateau a little bit. Right. And so but the hate part is really just becoming the head coach and not literally the star person, the executor anymore. I can't play, I
Which
can't
is super
execute as well.
relatable, and I'm sure so many folks listening right now are kind of like, "How do you successfully relinquish that control?" Because the thing that got me here and put me into this moment is the fact of that I was able to do this, and I was the one that
Yeah.
was able to deliver this, and right? So how do you capture those moments of that concept of essentially, like, excellence, customer care, like, the obsessive parts of our business that we care a ton about because it's, like, literally what, like, feeds our family? You
Yeah.
gotta deliver exceptional service and delightful outcomes to our customers. How have you taken what approaches have you taken in terms of building an ownable business that
Yeah.
allows you to take these things and then deploy them to people and empower
Yeah.
people? The
I think it's
operator.
just it's really just coming up with the systems and being like, run like there's a couple of different hires that have made a big difference. So finding the right people, right? I read this book, The Who Not How, right? Like it's also like everybody thinks the how we're gonna do everything, and sometimes it's the who that's gonna help you with the how. And so the biggest thing I've learned is like obviously we're always trying to replace us. Like I can market, I can design, I can program, I can do a lot of crap, right, Chris? But not everybody else can. And so I might be a 5-star athlete and it's like, okay, well, you got to find a person for each star, right? You got to find somebody who's speed, who's got the arm strength, who's got the brain knowledge to read the defense. So you need to find a person to fulfill something of yours. And so I've got a great operator who's just very much detail oriented. She's running all the operations. I've got a great app growth guy I've been able to sort of put all my knowledge into him so that he can manage the team. And then coming up with the systems and it's just learning, right? Like we got a lot of clients, we got a lot of interesting clients, and then like how do we service them properly and trying to train them properly so it's just putting the systems in place, but also finding the right people has been the hardest part.
Yeah,
And if you
people,
can get
right? People
that's
into
it,
the
bro.
people into the process, people into the process, and then what about the cadence behind it? What is the cadence of the business today? Yeah.
Dude, I'm trying. I don't know what you mean by cadence, but like if you're talking about just how I'm meeting with the team internally or
Yeah, operational
okay.
cadence, internal cadence, customer cadence.
Yeah, like
deliverables?
the thing is that hasn't changed, right? But it's like also changing the mindset because of what we do. We're inherently a marketing agency, right? And so people need to see results. And for us, like the thing that I've been working on today is just, hey, look, our clients want to see results. Like it's not like design pickle. You just get the freaking you just have an output, right? If you it's input and output. For us, it's not that easy. There's a lot of nuance because we're a marketing agency. You can't just be like, Steve, give me a banner that looks X, Y, and Z. Well, I can get you that and you'll be happy, right? As long as it looks good, you'll be happy. So that's easy for Design Pickle. It's easy for Video Husky to kind of be like, hey, edit this video for me. Great, right? But for us, like they are coming here to be like, help me with getting more downloads and more sales, essentially.
Mhm.
That's what a marketing agency would do. So making sure that our actions are tied to those goals. Because sometimes we got too much into the cadence of just deliverables versus results. And so what
Mhm.
I've been pushing the team is like, okay, you have your goals, are those goals matching with your actions? Because if your goal is to increase downloads by 30, 50, 100%, then your actions better match up to that because your actions are not because they're not these actions are not controllable. They're not going to get you to that result. And one thing I just came up with was I was like, look, tiny goals lead to tiny actions. Stop giving me tiny goals then. I forced them to be like, stop giving me these tiny goals because you're going to do tiny little actions. We need big goals to just get big actions. And even if those big actions don't lead to those big goals, at least you took a swing at the bat, right? And you're
Mhm.
not just playing safe at this. I think it took guts for you to start this podcast. It took guts for me to start the podcast. Good guts to go live on YouTube every single fucking week.
To
I
do
don't miss.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite
And
literally,
so,
and I love that. So it's like essentially challenging the outcome because that's what we're in it for, right? So we're here to deliver. We wanna deliver results. We wanna deliver outcomes to our happy paying customers, and the way in which we're gonna be able to do that is to be able to productize our how to be able to get to that outcome,
yeah,
and we wanna make sure that we're aligning it for the right reasons. And we want to create the purpose behind it. Now, you've been able to literally take this from a moment in time of identification from your audience all the way through to delivery and then scale and then output over an extended period of time. Think that you had mentioned, did you mention an acquisition as well?
yeah. So we bought a company. I started thinking about Apple and Amazon and how they own the whole distribution, right? So we're a marketing company, and there was this other company that was like a Groupon for apps. And it was like an AppSumo Groupon for apps. And they had a lot of app deals. And I started being a customer of them. I started hearing from the audience, listening to the audience. Like, hey, have you heard of this company called Indie App Santa? I was like, oh no, I was like, oh, I do. I have done something similar for 10 plus years, not using Indie App Santa, but using another website called App Advice. And so I knew the philosophy, like give something away for free, hack the downloads, get more ratings, right? And so this strategy, Chris, led to one of our clients going from $200 a month to $7,000 a month, and then ultimately $90,000 within its first year working with us. Like we really grew that out. So I believe in this. So, anyways, I became one of the customers, one of their best performing customers for India App Santa, and started putting a lot of our clients on there. And I reached out to the founder and I was like, hey, have you ever thought about selling the business? And then he's like, yeah, I'd be interested. And I was like, do you have a number in mind? And the number was very reasonable. I was like, okay, you know what? I'd love to buy it from you. And so we ended up purchasing this business at the end of 2024, and I could just see it. And again, this is the philosophy of the failed. I mean, I did exit copy masters, but I would call it not a huge success. But the lesson was like, people know you for apps. Like I've never done anything, Chris, for this long. By the way, I was one of those employees that was jump very frequently because I like to be pushed and I like to be interested in something. And the cool thing about the app space is things change all the freaking time. But
Mm,
I bought this service. We ended up charging more because I was like, this is underpriced. I just knew it. And then adding more services on top of this. So we acquired it. We made our money back within like 4 or 5 months. And then we've been able to, it's slowly starting to grow. Things are starting to change a little bit, but then, I think it's a little bit business. Then Chris, the last thing I'll add on to this is, the way I see like, and for the audience who's starting into services, I think there's a lot of ways that as a service company, you can start to diversify.
Hmm.
And so this is one way for us to diversify. But remember that I told you I was selling courses and I shut it down in 2015? Well, that's picked up quite a bit now. And so we have a app. So I once things started scaling, I was like, I'm gonna come back to this. Because Chris, the reason why I became an entrepreneur is I joined this mastermind community. It was a paid community. And in there were a lot of side hustlers saying, I'm quitting my job. I'm quitting my job. And so I finally got the courage to say, I want to quit my job too. So I believe wholeheartedly in community. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to relaunch this course, but make it more of a community with a private Slack group. It was a private Facebook group back then. And so that's gone on to be close to a six-figure business now as well. But you can see how, as a service agency, there's a lot of things you can do. You can start a
Hmm.
community, you can have courses, you can have all other products that cater to that audience. And so that's what I feel like the most proud of. Like now we have like 4 different business lines operating, but a couple of great team members operating on these 4 business lines. And App Masters is still the umbrella that makes most of the revenue, but we started to diversify our revenue streams.
And hedge a little bit of risk as well. And it from
Yeah.
a organic conversation, and for folks listening, many folks will say like that's the value ladder, or
Yeah.
different, so many different ways, but it's like very hard to do. It's a lot easier to say. It's very difficult to do what you did. Probably the hardest thing is to do where you started, which is to build an audience, right? It's like we're all told like that's the right thing. And I'm hoping that there's some folks listening right now that they see the end outcome of like if you commit to the, trust the process, commit to the journey. That's how I always wrap up the pod, like trust the process, commit to the journey.
Dude,
What I
100%.
mean, like literally, like what I mean is like this. It's like there's a place to start, and we're told it. There is live learn lessons, there's pattern recognition, there's all these things. And it's like you can either make the mistakes or you can kind of learn from folks that have already done it, and you can get a little bit of the cheat code. It's really difficult to like commit because that immediate gratification isn't there. But you're kind of like the representation of the person on the pod, which is why I'm so appreciative you show up today, because it's like 6+ years. Well, I don't even like what is that math? Like it's way longer than that. What is that math? Oh man, I should
13,
have done
about
that.
13 years, bro.
13 years, dude.
Yeah.
Like literally, right?
Yeah.
Like literally, like talk about, right? A journey. And folks want that immediate gratification. And it's like, it's hard, but you can create content, you can start to build an audience, find something that you're niched into with interest. The concept of the community, which is now like a diversification strategy for you. But like
Yep.
that's a simple place for folks to go. You're passionate about it, create community. It's a place to contain that content. You can contain members and contain audience. The ability to then like value ladder off into courses or use that as a way to drive. That's a very real thing. Service from that, like find folks that will pay you a premium for something
Yeah.
like quite literally what you did, and find some margin in it, make money for life, like support life money type of thing. Like
It's
literally
crazy.
exit your day job because this can be your job. Like you can literally do this stuff. And then a productized service, which is just like a more repeatable, scalable model to be able to build meaningful cash flow with. And then the ability to take that cash flow and then reinvest and diversify into a portfolio, which, yeah, now, like, 10 years ago, 13 years ago, to launch a SaaS was like a huge thing. I mean, you're in the Bay Area, it's literally raised for the billions type of thing. But
Yeah.
now, like, you could take that, you could take these profit flows, these proven profitable processes of a service or delivering value to somebody and turn it into a software and then label that onto a service on top of it. There's just so many things, and everything starts somewhere. And I think for a lot of folks, it's just like the concept of just get started. And what you shared today, which I appreciate a ton, is like the focus, because strategy does equal focus, and the ability to focus in and then commit to it, like do the thing
Yeah.
thousands of times. Like you're like thousands of times into repetition of the same thing. And even on this pod, I could even feel like the fact that you're on like I could feel the sales calls, like the repetition of talking to clients and over 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 and
Yeah.
doing it. I appreciate so much. Steve P. Young, thank you for joining on the pod. Trust the
You got it, Chris.
process. commit to the journey. Till next time.